I'll start the discussion by asking you, what were your aspirations and how has your journey been on the road of life so far? The audience wants to know.
All right. Okay. Thanks for that question. So I believe most of our audience is relatively young people, and it's all relative. So I believe many of the people over here are university students or people who have just graduated. And what I'll try and do is, I'll describe my own journey. And you ask about aspirations. Like anybody else, aspirations change with time. Aspirations are also a function of what's happening around us. So I will take you through my life's journey somewhat briefly, and also talk about how my aspirations evolved and changed. And through this, I hope that as I do this, I can share some life lessons of my own. And I hope that through these lessons, they can be, inspirational, or give some, help people who are watching, give some idea about how to navigate their lives. Obviously, everybody's journey is different, but you listen to other people and then you figure out, okay, somehow these things might be relevant to me and other things are not relevant now, but might be relevant later. So anyway, so I'll start talking from when I was a student in Karachi. So I went to Karachi Grammar School, and Zishan and I were actually class fellows for many years. So that's where our friendship started. So when I was in school, like anybody else, aspirations are driven by our own feelings and those around us. So at KGS, the big deal was to go abroad. And at that time, abroad was either England or America. And if you didn't have much money, you would generally try to go to America because that's where the scholarships were available. Those who were relatively well off had a choice and often went to England at the time. So since I came from a middle income family, were reasonably comfortable, but no way, didn't have the funds to go study abroad. So at that point, the aspiration was, let's try and get into a good American university with a good scholarship. And I studied hard. I was very fortunate that I had a very supportive family. And this was a traditional family. So my dad would work at a company. My mom was at home, but really supported me and helped me with my studies. So I did well in my O-levels, A-levels, and achieved that first aspiration. So managed to get into a good American university and received essentially almost 100% funding and went abroad. So that was the first aspiration. And now, as I went into university, which is where I believe many of our people who are watching are probably at university or graduating, then what are the aspirations that we have when we are at the university level? And I feel I was no different. So when I was at university, obviously the objective was to do well in my studies. And there are various things that one learns at university. Obviously you're studying your subjects, but you interact with different kinds of people. In school, normally the crowd is quite similar to you, but when you go to university, you see people from different backgrounds. I was fortunate enough that, met people from different parts of the world, learned a lot about different cultures, but those were side benefits. The major objective, especially from where I was coming, was to try and get a good job. So that was, that was my aspiration when I was at university. But at university, I was lucky enough to also start thinking about the purpose of life and, where to go. And the university I went to, Dartmouth College, Ivy League University, many of the people from there would go to Wall Street. And a major reason for that was Wall Street jobs would pay way more than any other job. So I thought about it. And when I met with people who came from Wall Street, or the sorts of people who wanted to go to Wall Street, it became obvious to me that their entire purpose of life or purpose in life is to make more and more money. And I could see this, this sort of a personality that developed around this whole concept of just wanting to be rich, have a job that pays a lot. And that did not strike me, as in it just seemed very superficial. So I decided not to go down that track. Instead, what I found more interesting at the time was the technology sector. So I ended up getting a job at Oracle. At the time, Oracle was a relatively small company. It had started taking off. This is in the early 90s. So in California, that had its own attraction at the time. My university was on the East Coast, and the thought of going to the West Coast, working at a technology company. At that time, there were 3-4 major technology companies. There was Oracle, there was Microsoft, there was Apple. All of those companies have become much bigger now, but at the time they were beginning to take off. So anyway, fortunate enough to go to Oracle. So lucky in the sense that my major aspiration out of university also worked out, and ended up going to a reasonably good company and started working there. Now, this was my first job after university. And here I got my first exposure to the corporate sector. So Oracle was, I would not say a typical company, but still it was a relatively large company. And some of you might have started working in the corporate sector, others might know people in the corporate sector. So in that sense, Oracle was a decent, even the name was Oracle Corporation at that time, so a reasonable corporation. But what I realized there, and I went through this. So when you work at a company now as a young professional, what are your aspirations? Generally, our aspirations are to go up the corporate ladder, right? So we start out obviously at the bottom, and then we work hard. There are promotion cycles, and society is telling us a few things, both directly and indirectly. We notice that people who work hard and do well for the company, they move up the corporate ladder. Their salaries go up, their benefits go up, they get bigger offices, they get corner offices with better views. So all this creates a desire in the people who come into the company to try and go up the ladder, because as you go up the ladder, you get all these goodies. Obviously, when you are a kid, goodies are defined differently. As you grow older, it's still goodies, just the goodies become different, right? When you start your new job, then your goodies are a bigger office, bigger pay scale, better car, better position, more prestige. So all that is subliminally put inside us. And why is it put inside us? It's put inside us so we can work harder for the company and help the shareholders get even richer while we slog away for 60, 70 hours a week. So that's the environment I was in. And when we are in that environment, and this happened with me too, we are working really hard for the next promotion and so on. And I remember, I was trying to work hard. There are others with me, and some of my colleagues got promoted and I didn't get promoted. And I remember feeling so bad about it. And now, obviously, I realize that it is such a superficial thing, right? It's somebody else making a judgment and saying, okay, you're promoted, you're not promoted. The people who are promoted go have a big party, and those who are not promoted, are sad about it. But aspirations are created over there which serve the company. So I worked for Oracle for a few years, and then I had enough of Oracle. But one thing from a professional standpoint that was good at Oracle was Oracle encouraged us to keep learning more. So in California, I took some courses from Stanford. I managed to do my MBA also over the weekends from the University of Chicago. So worked for Oracle for about 7-8 years and got, sort of enhanced my resume, both in terms of getting good experience, but along with the experience, I learned some of these other things that I just talked about, and also got my MBA in the process. Then in late 1999, early 2000, I moved back to the East Coast. So I moved to a company called Mindtree. So this was a startup company. And you mentioned this company in your introduction. So this company had a base in New Jersey, so in the United States, and in India. So this company basically was based on technology outsourcing. Work was picked up in the US market, and this work was executed in India, mostly in Bangalore. Right? I'm sure all of you have heard of outsourcing and technology-related outsourcing and how India has done so well. So I joined the US part of this business, And at the back of my mind was the idea that I want to try and do something similar for Pakistan. So throughout my journey, at the back of my mind, I always wanted to go back to Pakistan and do things in Pakistan. I didn't know exactly what, but here looking at India's success in outsourcing and this particular company, where actually one of the founders of the company was a friend of mine from Dartmouth. So he's the one who invited me and I joined and helped the company grow. When I started with the company, there were just 7, 8 people in New Jersey. And over the 7 or so years, the company became pretty big. Now, during this time, I made a case that let me go back to Pakistan. And just like we do work from India, let's try and do work from Pakistan, because I wanted that people in Pakistan also get jobs and become part of this journey. So I succeeded partially in the sense that my company allowed me to come back to Pakistan and work from Pakistan. But I had a very difficult time trying to get others in Pakistan to join the company, in the sense that what I realized, unfortunately, is that while we talk a lot about our talent pool in Pakistan, but at this time, so early 2000, the number of people in Pakistan who were well qualified in the technology space was very small. So compared to India, where there are many good educational institutions that are producing thousands of competent people, in fact, hundreds of thousands, in Pakistan, there is and was a lot of hype, but the number of people actually coming out was not that much. Plus, there were unfortunately all these sensitivities between India and Pakistan, because of which I could not create anything substantial. Did a few small projects where people from Pakistan were working, but nothing to the level that I really wanted. So then, so at that point, so now you can also see that my aspirations are changing, right? So aspirations from going to a big, good university to a corporate sector, going up to the corporate sector. Now aspirations are shifting towards back home and trying to do something for the for my country. So anyway, just want to, hopefully you are sensing this also, but this was an objective. And when that objective, and I could see that this is not being accomplished, then I left Mindtree. So it was a perfectly decent job. During this time, I also became the head of the Middle East operations, but it was becoming too corporate, and my real objective was not being met. So I left and started doing a few things in Karachi. So my family had also come back, kids started going to school, and now fortunately with all these years abroad, I had saved enough money that I was not I didn't have to work for any other company. So I decided I don't really want to work for a big company. I worked for a few small companies just to get a sense for the local market. But most importantly, I started, following one of my passions. So one of my passions was teaching. Even in America, I'd spent some time teaching on the side, and I really enjoyed it. And interacting with young people and teaching them what I know and helping them develop. This is something I always wanted to do and liked doing. So I started doing that in Pakistan. And the good thing about Pakistan is there's no shortage of people and there is no shortage of things to do. And if you want to get into teaching and helping others, there is a lot of opportunity in Pakistan. So I started teaching at IBA. Fortunately, at that time, Dr. Ishrat Hussain was the dean and director of IBA, met him, and he was very gracious. He said, okay, you come on board. So started teaching there in about 2008, 2009, and I'm still teaching there. Got involved a little bit with TCF and tried a few small companies, but didn't work out. So I was essentially on my own. And at that point, I decided to start my company. So this was about 2010, early 2011. So decided to start my own company called IFT, or Irfanullah Financial Training. So that's so then so I can talk a little bit now about my company. And
yeah, sure. I mean, yes, you definitely have shared some really interesting parts of your journey and also your aspirations. Uski puri journey sunne ka hame bahut maza aaya. You talked about your ups and downs, and also I really liked how you talked about कि किस तरह आपकी goodies की definition भी with the passage of time change हो गई. Also, right. your journey shifted from entirely a corporate sector to teaching and starting your own company. So we would like more to know about IFT now, which you are telling.
So I'll talk a little bit about IFT and how I started. So when I started, it was basically, for lack of a better term, a small coaching center. So got a small space, advertised, got about 4 or 5 students, and I, started. And again, very, very different from the corporate sector, just a few students coming in and learning from me. I enjoyed teaching. I had studied finance during my MBA and did some finance work. So now this was something that was also related to engineering that I had studied before. So I started preparing students for something called the CFA, the Chartered Financial Analyst exam. Initially just 5 people. Then the following year, it grew from 5 to about 20. But at this stage, I got inspired by this online service called Khan Academy. So at that time, Khan Academy was becoming quite big. Now, lots of people are doing things online, but Khan Academy was a unique idea at the time. So I thought that why don't I try and do something similar for my work? And I reached out to Khan Academy, asked them some questions about how they do it, and then got the necessary equipment and started making my video lectures and putting them on YouTube for no fee. I just had a feeling that this is the way to go. A lot of people discouraged me, and the point was कि अगर आप ये सब YouTube पे डाल देंगे तो आपके पास पढ़ने कोई नहीं आएगा, which seems logical, right? As in, if you have this tuition mindset and you're just putting everything out there, then why would anybody come to you and pay for it? But I just had the feeling that this is the right thing to do. And this is one of the lessons, that sometimes you have a feeling and that feeling is stronger than the logic that other people are giving. So anyway, I put these videos online, and now there was a tremendous amount of interest. So, there were thousands and thousands of views, and people started reaching out to me that they really like the lectures. Can I put more? So I kept doing that. And what ended up happening was that I put the entire, so the CFA program is divided into 3 parts or 3 levels. So I put all the videos for level 1 online. And that literally, so thousands of people from around the world started doing the CFA prep using my videos. And across the world, people would charge a lot of money for CFA classes. And suddenly, all that's available for free. So then it started taking up a lot of my time. And I felt that while I want to continue doing things for free, but I should also try and monetize this, because a lot of my time and energy is going into this. And those of you who try to make online material will realize that it takes time. It's not something that you can do very quickly. So some things can be done quickly, but if you want to do it in a good way and an organized way, then it takes time and energy. So then the way I monetized this was, I said, okay, I'm going to do level 1 for free, but for level 2 and 3, I'll make videos and you pay for it. And that also worked out quite well. And all this illustrated, I think, an important point, that if you have a big heart and you give, somehow, you will receive a lot more. And people often have this mindset that, if I give, I lose it. But sometimes if you give, you get much more beyond what one imagines. So this is just having a much larger sort of a big heart and a big mind. So anyway, so that worked out, and people started buying level, level 2 and level 3. And initially I was trying to do everything. I would just make videos, put them on Google Drive. People would pay me and then I'd give them access on Google Drive. But this was not sustainable because practically everything was being done by me. Then I started hiring people, to edit videos, hiring people to handle the technology, set up a proper e-commerce website. So over time, hired people to do different things. And that worked out very well, because obviously I could then just focus on what I like to do, which was make these videos. And and somebody else would take care of marketing and technology and customer support and so on. So now there is a reasonable number of people who are working, and I simply focus on making videos when new videos need to be made. Plus, a huge benefit of this business is you make something and then you keep using it. So it's worked out well. It's created employment. Foreign exchange comes into the country. So I just feel that it's helped in many ways. And this is also for many people watching online. It shows, given the larger theme of these sessions, it shows that a lot can be accomplished sitting in Pakistan, right? You can cater to an international market, and YouTube and these other sorts of channels and technologies have made things possible that were not even conceivable 20 years ago, right? And that's why I'm so excited about this session, and I really hope that those who are watching can also come up with ideas that will take them to the next level. So come up with business ideas that leverage the facilities and the technologies that we now have, and take this to a much higher level. All right, so just
yes. So thank you so much for telling or sharing a lot about your company. It was very interesting and insightful to know. Now, जैसे कि आपका shift corporate sector से teaching की तरफ आया, and now उसके साथ साथ you are running your own company and all. So you would like to know, पहले आपकी जब आप abroad, your definition of success might be different. We just want to know कि अब की आपकी, after so many years of experience in so many different domains, what is your definition of a real success now? As a student, would like to know. Yeah.
I think that's a great question, because everybody wants to be successful, right? So then the question is, what is success? And to some extent, the definition of success changes with time, and it's also different for different people. If somebody is a farmer and grows up, is born in a village to a farming family, they grow up with different surroundings and different definitions. But I'm going to actually take a step back here, and this is from my own experience and just looking around me and observing. Normally, when we talk about a concept like success, it's first important to understand, let's just say, find out what are the things that many people think are success but are not really success. So what isn't success? And here I'd say, and I'll substantiate why I'm going to say what I'm saying. So even if you say कि एक कामयाब इंसान क्या होता है या क्या नहीं होता, what we would generally hear is wealth. So unfortunately, in our environment, if somebody is more wealthy, that implies more success. Somebody has more status. Somebody is more popular. In our environment, success is also measured using, metrics that didn't exist before. So if you do something on, there are so many social media outlets also, the number of likes or the amount of appreciation you get online, that might be a measure of success. But I will argue that all these are superficial measures of success that have been created, but don't represent real success. And I can explain why. When I was about your age, the age of most people on this, or maybe even younger, when we were in school, one of the most popular performers at the time was Michael Jackson. Now, on the surface, he had all of these things that I've talked about. He had wealth, he had status, he had popularity, but was he successful? Now we can look back at his life, he was unfortunately a very unhappy person. Super rich, super successful, he basically from rags to riches, but not very happy. We go back, look at somebody like Hitler, super powerful, but he also committed suicide. Michael Jackson also committed suicide. And even today, people who appear to be very happy and appear to have all these ostensible signs of what people refer to as success, but they are not contented, they are not happy. So is that what we want to be? Is that success? And I would say very definitively, having seen people from all over the world, from different walks of life, that chasing these superficial things, I'm not saying they're inherently wrong or bad, as in working hard and getting money, and that's happened with me too. I'm not saying that that's bad, but making that the purpose of life and saying that more wealth means more success or more status means more success, I think that is very problematic. Because no matter how wealthy you get, there'll be somebody else wealthier than you. And you can ask the richest people in the world, is that money making you happy, or is it giving you peace of mind, peace of heart? And they'll say no, right? So those who don't want it, those who don't have it, pursue it. But those who have it say, okay, it wasn't really worth it. Even if you watch some of the interviews that Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, gave towards the end of his life, even he said that these things are really very superficial. So hopefully I've established that wealth, status, popularity, etc., are not really measures of success. They are not inherently bad, but they are not success. So what is success? Obviously, lots of people talk about this. I'll give you my perspective, and I'm not saying that this is unique or different, but I'd say for me, success would mean being at peace. And this is being at peace with ourselves. So if I am at peace with who I am at peace with what I'm doing, I'm at peace with the relationships that I have with others and my relationship with the world. But I'd say most importantly, with the relationship that I have with my creator, my sustainer. And having peace in those aspects is what I would say is success. Even if I'm not wealthy, but I am at peace with those around me and my creator, that would be success. Then taking this one step further, and this is all related. Now the question is, what brings peace? I'd say one of the most important things that brings peace is recognizing our larger purpose in life, right? If we understand, now here again, I will differentiate what I'm saying with what, I spent a fair amount of time studying self-improvement literature. So people like Robin Sharma or Anthony Robbins or Stephen Covey. So they also talk about success, and they have slightly different approaches. But one of the things that you often hear in this, self-improvement and, how to be happy and how to be successful kind of literature is that you find your purpose and then you go for it. So I would say that's partially true. Just having a purpose is not enough. We should also have the correct purpose. And this connects also with our faith. And I feel that over the years, I have become more connected with God and my faith. And I feel that having the right purpose is very important. And that purpose should be in the context of who we are, where we are. So for example, if Michael Jackson had a purpose that I want to be the best performer in the world, and he achieved that purpose, he was following a purpose, but did that make him happy? No, because I don't think that that's a very meaningful purpose to have. So we need to have a much higher purpose, and that purpose needs to be linked with our creator. So we need to find out, he has put each one of us in a particular situation. So we need to understand our situation, understand what our creator wants from us, and then define our purpose in line with what God wants of us. So that I think is extremely important. If we can do that and then start proceeding in that direction, that is what even the Quran refers to as the Sirat-e-Mustaqim, the straight path. So it's not really about the destination. It's about a path or a journey towards the right destination. And if we feel that we are doing the right things and going on that right path, that is what gives peace. and that can, that varies from person to person. So hopefully, hopefully it made some sense.
Definitely, you have made some very, very good points, and definitely a lot of people will take away a lot of things from here. I really liked how you mentioned about the stars, more like Michael Jackson and Hitler and Robin Williams, how they were very popular and they had a huge fan following. They had all those, they fulfilled all those worldly desires that they had, wealth, power, but at the end, they lived like a miserable life. It ended by either it was by suicide or overdose of like drugs, etc. So definitely, I was also like reading about this Japanese term ikigai, which means having a purpose of life. It's like now the books that these Japanese people are like bringing into the market and explaining, okay, why do we all need to have a purpose in our lives? When we wake up, why do we wake up? What do we have to, our actions for particularly fulfilling the desires that we have? Yeah, definitely. It was very interesting to know. So I would also like want to know it from you कि एक successful इंसान होने के लिए you talked about कि real success क्या होता है, वो attributes होने चाहिए एक इंसान के अंदर जो उसको successful बना सकता है. And then we can, like, this will be our concluding question. So
okay,
you
good.
can shed some light on that.
I think, बहुत अच्छा सवाल है, and obviously, so one is we've talked about success. So now a very logical next question is, okay, so what are the attributes of a successful person? उसके अंदर एक कामयाब इंसान में क्या चीजें होनी चाहिए? Because all of us want to be successful, right? So now I go back to a point I made earlier that we need to recognize our purpose in life, and one of the objectives there is to have a connection with our Creator. And I know that this is not intended to be a formal Friday sermon or anything like that, but if God's created us and put us in this world, He has also then told us how to be successful. It would not make sense that we are all here and then we don't get any guidance in terms of, what is success, what to do, what are the attributes, what are the characteristics you should have. So literally, if we open the Quran, the first surah is Surah Fatiha, where we are asking for guidance. So we are saying, okay, what should I do? And, what should I do to be successful? How can I be like the people that you are pleased with, those who are ultimately successful? That is sort of the introduction, or, the thing that sets up the Quran. Then immediately after that, I'm going to say a few things and probably give an interpretation that most people haven't heard before, but just bear with me. So as we start reading Surah Baqarah, which comes right after the Fatiha, so right there up front, after pointing out that the Quran is the book of God, there is absolutely no doubt in it, God is giving us the attributes of a successful person. So, and I'll first say those attributes, and then I'll connect those with the way most of us think, along with the more spiritual interpretation. So who are these successful people? Number one, who believe in the unseen, establish prayer, spend out of what God has provided them, who believe in revelation, and then obviously the revelation to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and earlier revelation, and who are certain about the hereafter. Okay, so 4 or 5 things, and then Allah says these are the ones who are guided, and these are the ones who are successful. So literally, boom, 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 a few major characteristics of those who are successful. So when God has given this to us, the question is, who am I to give any other attribute? So all I can do is try and take these and try to explain these, try to understand these myself. And that's what I'll try and do. What does this mean to me? So the first thing is believe in the unseen. Now, obviously, the traditional meaning, which is the correct meaning, definitely is, we are people who believe in God unseen. We believe in, revelation, which is unseen. We believe in angels. So we believe in so many things that are not seen. So that's true. But if you think about successful people, so now I'm going to also connect this to self-help kind of literature. People who believe strongly in their idea, okay, You look at the most successful people in the world, they have an idea and they work on the idea. Is the idea something that they can see? No. Is the result of that idea something they can see? No. Right? So the belief in the unseen is extremely powerful, both in the religious and spiritual sense, because it makes us stronger. And even in a worldly sense, like, for example, when I started my work, I believed this will be successful, right? Success was not something I could see, but it was a belief which was very strong. And I will take this one step even further and, ask everybody who is watching this to reflect. Imagine two people who are both on a journey. Person A is extremely comfortable, traveling first class, but going to a place where he thinks he'll be very unhappy. Okay, but right now he has all the comforts in the world, but he is heading to a place that he is extremely worried about. Okay, person B has a very uncomfortable ride, but is going to a place where he believes he'll be extremely happy. Right? So two people, one is currently very uncomfortable, but going to a good place. B is very comfortable. So the other person is very, so one is comfortable, the other is uncomfortable right now. Who's happier? Is it based on the current state or the belief? Right? Any one of us would rather be the person who's uncomfortable now, but going to a good place. So the good place represents our belief, right? So keep that in mind. So successful people will believe in the unseen, and that not only, and that will also give them peace and happiness now, even though the actual state right now might be uncomfortable, right? So that's one point. Then the second point here is establish prayer. So what is prayer? Prayer represents our relationship with our Creator, right? If we recognize that we as human beings are a physical entity, but we also have a spirit inside us that came from God. And if we ignore that spirit inside us, we can't be happy. We can't be at peace, because that's also a part of us, right? That is something, if we read the Quran, when God created Adam, he breathed his spirit into Adam. Right? So God's spirit has been breathed into us as humanity. That is our spirit, our soul, our ruh. Right? So the prayer sort of gives sustenance to a very important aspect of us, which is the ruh. So successful people have to recognize the spiritual or the ruh part also and nourish that. Right? So that's the second point. The third point is spend out of what, so this is Allah saying, spend out of what we have provided for them. So this has many points, but I'll highlight two. One is the money or whatever attributes or whatever assets we have been given, we should not think they are ours. These are actually given by God, right? So that creates humility. And that brings another very important attribute of successful people is that they are humble. Right. So if I have something, like if I literally look at my own journey, almost as in everything I have is because of the blessings that or the good things other people have done to me. And obviously that behind all that is God. Right. So whatever I have is not actually mine. It's actually what has been given to me by God. And I am now answerable for what I do with it. So that, so that's humility. Plus, to be, you ask people around the world, what makes you happy? When people do good things for others, literally, if you don't have much and you go help somebody else, you just have like a little bit of food and you go share that food, that will give you way more happiness than eating all that food yourself. And I'm sure many of us have experienced that. So that's the point being made here. So in this one small part of one ayat, two huge points are made. One has to do with humility, and the other has to do with when you give to others, you are kind to others, you have this connection with fellow human beings. That also gives you a peace inside that you don't get like any other way, right? Then the next is those who believe in revelation. So, and that covers so much in Revelation. If you read the Quran, guidance on how to be a good person is all there. humility, gratitude, patience. So all the things that you will see in self-help books. So one of the big things that, for example, Robin Sharma goes on and on about is gratitude. So be grateful, right? And you start reading the Quran and over, like it's all about gratitude right up front. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen is about being grateful, right? And then, so after all these, this ayat says it is, these are the people who are truly guided and these are the ones who are successful. Actually, one more point that I missed. They are certain in the hereafter, certain about the hereafter, right? And again, think about this. Successful people will also be extremely honest, extremely ethical. And they'll be honest and ethical even when the law is not forcing them to do so, right? So to be good to others, I know I can get away by cheating, or I know I can make some more money if I cheat because nobody's going to catch me, but I'm still going to do the right thing. I'm still going to be honest. Why? Because I know that I'm answerable for what I'm doing. So that's linked with my faith. I'm certain that I'm going to be answerable, right? So when we put all these things together, then, this is summarized. These are the people who are truly guided, and these are the people who will be successful. Literally, humul muflihun. Falah is the Arabic word for success, right? So the definition of all these attributes are right there. And then people like us, rather than coming up with our own list of attributes of successful people, we just look at what we've been created by God, right? So what does God say? We just need to understand it and apply it to ourselves. All right. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. You talked about how believing in ourselves as well as believing in the unseen, it was very interesting, and you've left and shared a lot of things for the audience as well as for me as a moderator to reflect upon. And definitely hum sab bahut zyada success ko के parameters के साथ worldly desires और इस तरह की चीजों को link करते हैं. But yes, we had a very, very intellectual discussion today, and thank you so much for your time, Sir Arif Irfanullah.
Thank you very much.